Okay, this is section 8.3, perimeter and area. So you have two sections basically left for the entire semester. The first one goes up over what is perimeter and what is area. So the first objective, we're going to be looking at perimeter. And perimeter is basically finding out what is the length of the outside of the figure. So how do we find the perimeter of any figure? We add up all of the sides. And I just wanted to mention there is a shortcut when you're dealing with a rectangle. So if you have a rectangle, your sides, the lengths, for instance, are of equal length and the widths are of equal width. So the shortcut to this is the perimeter of a rectangle equals 2 times the length plus 2 times the width. And if you don't want to memorize that, once again, what do? You can add up all the sides. So it's going to be W plus L plus W plus L. Okay? But once again, this is just a shortcut. All right, so to find the perimeter of any figure, just add up all the sides. So objective 2 goes over area. And the first area we're looking at is the area of a rectangle. So here is a rectangle. Okay? So to find the area of the rectangle, we are looking for this inside area. So once again, we have the length of the rectangle and we have the width of the rectangle. So the area of the rectangle equals length times width, and that needs to be memorized. The next area we're going to look at is the area of a square. So a square is a rectangle. However, all of the sides are of equal length. So let's make the sides S, for instance. So once again, we're trying to find the inside area of the square. So how do I do that? I take my side and I square it. So whatever your side is, you're going to square that, and that is the area of a square. That needs to be memorized. In fact, what I'm going to do is place little stars next to the formulas that you need to have memorized. All right, so the next one we have to do is the area of a parallelogram. So here's a parallelogram. So a parallelogram means that the base and the top are parallel to each other, and so are the sides. So when I say base and top, here's the top, and here's the base. So the bottom is the base, the top is the top, okay? And then my sides are also parallel to each other, okay? So let's figure out how do we find the area of a parallelogram. Okay, so the area of a parallelogram, you can find that by taking area equals the base times the height. So B stands for base and H stands for height. Okay, so the height is how tall is the triangle? Excuse me, the parallelogram. So how tall is the parallelogram? That is going to be the height. Okay, and base is once again the bottom of the figure. Okay, all right, so that's how you find the area of a parallelogram. The next one we have is something that you probably already know, but it's the area of a triangle. So once again, we're trying to figure out this inside area. And to find the area of a triangle, you take area equals 1/2 base times height. So once again, the base is the bottom of this figure, and the height is how tall is it. Okay, so once again, B stands for the base or the bottom of the triangle, and H stands for height. So once again, how tall is it? Okay, this one needs to be memorized. By the way, you can also do area by of a triangle in particular, by taking base times height over 2. So either formula works, but once again, most of you probably learned 1/2 base times height. Okay, so the next thing we got to learn is how do we find the area of a trapezoid? Okay, so what does a trapezoid look like? The base and the top are parallel to each other. However, you're going to have two sides that are not parallel. Okay, so when we do this, the bottom is called the base, the top is the top. And then we also need to know what the height of this is. Okay, so what's the height? How tall is this figure? And then we can call this side, C and side D if we really want to. Okay, so if we're trying to find the area, remember the area is inside of the trapezoid here. So area of a trapezoid equals your top of your figure plus your base over 2 times your height. Okay, so once again, you're going to take your top plus your base over 2 divided by, let me start that over again. The area equals your top plus your base divided by 2, and then you multiply it by height. Okay, so that's how you do the area of a trapezoid. All right, so let's see what these word problems look like that you're going to encounter in your homework. It says, Rob wishes to replace grass or sod on a lacrosse field. 1 pallet of Bethel Farm sod costs $360 and covers 480 square feet. If the area to be covered is a rectangle with a length of 360 feet and a width of 228 feet, determine A, the area to be covered with sod, B, how many pallets of sod Rob needs to purchase, and then the cost of the sod purchased. Okay, so let's work on each one at a time. Part A, the area to be covered with the sod. Well, I know from this that if I look at this, I have to find the area to be covered as a rectangle. Okay, so if it's an area of a rectangle is length times width. And if I draw this out just so I can see what's going on, it says that the length is 360 feet and the width is 228. And remember, I'm trying to find this area in between. So what I need to do is take the length, which is 360, times the width, which is 228, and multiply these together. Okay, so we're going to do that and see what we get. When I take 360 times 228, I got 82,080. Okay, and we have to make sure we put the units. So this is feet squared. So whenever you do area, the units are always going to be squared. I forgot to mention that before. Okay, so we know the whole area is 82,080 feet squared. Part B, how many pallets of sod Rob needs to purchase? Well, each pallet covers 480 square feet. So each pallet covers 480 square feet. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take 82,080 and divide that by 480. And if I do that, that'll tell me how many pallets that I'll need. Okay, so let's do that together. Okay, and when I divide 82,080 by 480, I got 171 pallets. So this is how many pallets that he's going to need to cover that lacrosse field. Okay, so let me highlight my answers for each one. So A is highlighted, B is highlighted, but we have part C as well. Part C says, what's the cost of the sod purchased? Well, if each pallet costs $360, and we have to buy 171 pallets, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to multiply these together. So I'm going to multiply 171 times 360, or you can do it 360 times 171. And when we do that, I get $61,560. So it's going to cost $61,560 to sod or resod that lacrosse field. Okay, so we got that one done. Let's look at the next one. So the next thing that we have to learn about is Pythagorean Theorem. So Pythagorean Theorem is used to find a missing side of a right triangle. Okay, so if you remember before, a right triangle means that inside the corner of that triangle there is a 90-degree angle. Okay, so when we do Pythagorean theorem, we have to understand what's called a leg and what is the hypotenuse. So I'm going to use A and B. So A and B are legs of the triangle. Okay, and they are sides. So sides A and B are legs of the triangle. C is the hypotenuse. Okay, and let me make a little note. The hypotenuse is the side across from the right angle. And this is always the case. Also, C will be the longest side. And this is always the case, okay? So Pythagorean's theorem says if I square side A, but if I square leg A plus the square of leg B, it's going to equal C squared. So Pythagorean theorem states A squared plus B squared equals C squared. And this formula is used to find a missing side. So if you want to use Pythagorean theorem, you have to know two of the sides. So you can know side A and C, or side B and A, or A and B. Okay, so you have to know two of the three to be able to use it. Okay, and once again, it is only used for right triangles. Okay, so let's look at an example. It says a moat surrounds a castle, is 18 feet wide, and the wall by the moat of the castle is 24 feet high. If an invading army wishes to use a ladder to cross the moat and reach the top of the wall, how long must the ladder be? All right, so let's draw this out because we need a visual. Okay, so here is a castle. Okay, I'm just throwing in some bricks, a little bit here and there. Okay, and we have, some water. So the water we know is 18 feet. Okay, and the invaders are going to be right here. So they're trying to get to the top of the castle to storm it. So what happens is we get a nice right angle. Remember that the height of the castle is 24 feet. Okay, so if I take and redraw the triangle without the pictures, I have 24 feet here and 18 feet here. This is a right triangle because we're assuming that that wall is nice and straight. And we want to know how long is the ladder. So this guy is trying to invade here. That's his sword. Okay? All right, so how long is the ladder? That's going to be X. Okay? So you know what? I'm going to change this from X to C just because we're using Pythagorean theorem. So once again, remember side C is always across from the right angle. That's why I called it C. So Pythagorean theorem says A squared plus B squared equals C squared. So A, let's make that 18. So 18 squared plus 24 squared equals C squared. Okay. On your calculator or on your paper, you can put these inside parentheses just to keep them clean. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to find out what 18 squared is. So you have a choice. You can do 18 times 18 if you don't have a fancy calculator, because that's what 18 squared means. And when I do that, I get 324. And then to get 24 squared, I can do 24 times 24. And when I do 24 times 24, I get 576. And this equals C squared. Okay? Now I'm going to add 576 and 324 together. And when I do that, I get 900. So basically what I'm trying to do is simplify my equation down. Now, to get c by itself, because you want to isolate c, you're going to take the square root of both sides. And when I use this, it's called the square root property. I actually get two answers, a plus and a minus, but I'm going to ignore the negative value because I don't need it. We're talking about length, so length is always positive. So if I take the square root of 900, I am going to get 30. And remember, we're talking about feet, so that ladder is really long. It's 30 feet in length. Okay, so that's how you would do this problem, and that one's done. So the next objective we go into is circles. Now, to find the area of the circle, remember, I'm looking for the inside of it, okay? So I'm taking from the center outward. Now this little bit that I just drew is called the radius. So r equals the radius of the circle. And the radius is the point from the center of the circle to the edge of the circle. Okay, so to find the area of a circle, we take pi, and then we are going to square r, pi r squared. Okay, perimeter is actually not called perimeter for circles. It's called the circumference. Okay, so the circumference of a circle. So there's two ways to actually find this, but once again, if we use radius, circumference of a circle equals pi, or 2 pi r, or you can write this up as pi times the diameter. So once again, the r stands for the radius, and d stands for diameter. The diameter is the entire distance across. So diameter is 2 times r. So 2r equals d. So that's why you can use either formula. Okay? All right. So you have to know circumference equals 2 pi r, or pi d. Once again, these have to be memorized. So determine the shaded area. Use the pi key on your calculator and round your answer to the nearest hundredth. Okay. So this is going to require me to know two things. We're going to find the outside area first. So I'm going to find that area, the outside of the figure. So I'm literally finding the whole entire area. I'm going to call this area 1. So area 1 is a parallelogram. Okay, so to find the area of a parallelogram, remember we took the base times the height. So how tall is it? Okay, well, I'm looking at the figure and I know the base. The base is 10. How do we find how tall it is? We can use a little trick. So from here to here is 2 feet because that's the radius, and this is 2 more feet. So if I add these up, the height of this is 4 feet. Okay? So the height equals 4, the base equals 10. So I multiply these together, 4 times 10, this equals 40. Okay? Now I'm going to work on, let me erase all this, the inside of the figure. So I'm going to call this area 2. And area 2 is this circle on the inside, right? So area 2 is a circle. So to find the area of a circle, we take pi r squared. Now it says very specifically to use the pi key when you do this. The radius I know is 2 feet. So area for the circle is pi times 2 squared. So this equals pi times 4, because 2 times 2 is 4, or 4 pi. Okay? All right, so I have my two areas. So what I have to do is, if I want to determine the shaded region, I'm going to take area 1 minus area 2. Area 1, remember, is 40, and then we're going to minus, in parentheses, 4 pi. Okay? So in your calculator, I want you to take 40 minus 4 pi. So what I got was 27.4 feet squared because I took 40 minus 4 pi. Okay, so once again, if you have a problem like this, find your outside figure first, find the area of that, and then subtract that inside figure from that. And that will give you the shaded region. Okay, so let's look at an easier example. Find the area and circumference of the following. So number 16, they want me to find the area. The area to be found is pi r squared because that's a circle. So let's do that first. So area equals pi times 13. That's my radius, and I'm going to square it. 13 squared is 169 times pi. Okay, so go ahead and do that in your calculator. And when I do that in my calculator, I get area equals 530.9 millimeters squared because I'm finding area. Okay, next it asks me to find the circumference. To find the circumference of a circle, remember we can find that by taking 2 times pi times r, or you can find it by doing pi d. Since I was given the radius, I'm going to do 2 times pi times r. So 2 times pi times 13. 2 times 13 is 26. And then we're going to multiply that by pi. So let's do that on our calculator. Okay, when I do that, my calculator circumference equals 81.7 and then millimeters. When we're talking about the length, the perimeter or the circumference, because remember we're finding distance around, our units are just going to be in 1 unit. So it's just millimeters instead of millimeters squared. That's for area. Okay, so number 18, I finished 16. Number 18 here, we're going to do this one. It says find the area and circumference. So let's do area first. So once again, the area of a circle is pi r squared. This time around, they gave me the diameter. So to find the radius, I'm going to take half of that diameter. Okay? So if I take half of the diameter, which is 16, that gives me 8. So area equals pi times 8 squared. 8 times 8 is 64. So your area is 64 pi. So let's put that in our calculator. Okay, when I put this in my calculator, I got 201.1 yards squared. So remember, it's square units. Why? Because we're finding the area. Okay, now for the circumference. Circumference of a circle is found by 2 pi r, or we can find this by taking pi times the diameter. Since I was given the diameter, I'm going to go that route. So I'm going to take pi times 16. So I'm going to put 16 times pi in my calculator and see what we get. And I got 50.3 yards. So once again, we're doing circumference, so make sure your units are only in 1 unit, not squared. So 50.3 yards. Okay, and that is the end of this section. So you just have to watch 8.4. And by the way, I just wanted to reiterate that if you're finding the area, your unit should be squared. If you're finding perimeter or circumference, your unit should be to the first power. So it's just the units. So it's just yards, just inches, just feet. Okay? All right, so memorize those formulas and practice them with your homework before you take the test.